And I will stumble into beauty, recognizing that it's me. I will open up my heart and surrender unto thee.
Hey beautiful family. Before I start, let me send an abundance of love from myself to whoever you are. I've just moments ago had quite a beautiful little synchronistic moment. 2 days ago, an elderly lady using 2 walking sticks came past Fritzi and I, and she spoke briefly in German with Fritzi. And when she left, I said to Fritzi, we are supposed to have a conversation with this person, and we haven't. I left it at that, and here I am sitting in the middle of the forest, off the beaten track, and this elderly lady comes on this cold, muddy winter day and walks straight to where I am, and we've had a long conversation about God and swapped numbers, so I'll be visiting her. It's always beautiful when God brings you a new friend and energy to exchange with like that. And so this is why I come out here, not to meet people, but to be aligned with the only place I've ever really known God, and that is free from the dream, here and now, with no need to improve, control, calculate, understand with my intellect, but just to accept it and give thanks for it, for the occurrence of life around us. And I had a plan to tell you all about a vision that I had with this video, and so I want to share that vision with you, and only in the hope to sing a song in my heart, not to teach, not to educate, but if anything to say, come with me and look at these things together. Because it's no good sitting comfortable, using someone like myself as entertainment. This won't do. You can hear it, you can accept it and reject it, but the real work is to have the presence of God in your own life. And to do that, you can't just sit comfortably living out the mental character of the nationality who watches entertainment on a screen, be it toying with spiritual or awakening or God or not. But it should be to go away and go inside yourself and find that presence in your own life, that relationship in your own life. And so it's getting through all that entanglement and coming back to being awake from the dream, because when you're awake from the dream here and now, back in Eden consciousness, away from the duality of biting from the fruit, back in Eden consciousness, then all of the truth is revealed unto you, and the destiny of your life, the original fruit that God and Source, the will of unconditional love had for you, can be made manifest. It can fruit. But it fruits spontaneously from the presence. And in my experience, only from the presence does that fruit spontaneously come. And so this vision I had, I saw the energy body of a brain. Now if you can imagine a brain animation, I'm sure I can get one for the video actually, of a wireframe of a brain. And here you have this brain in a wireframe. And not often do we look at things like the brain because it's so busy dealing with mind and image and future and past and all these illusory things that we don't engage the brain to observe itself or to observe elements of the self. And And the reason for that is the brain is not free to do so, because it's bogged down by mind. It's not free. It's not loose. It's not available to us. And so I had this image like a wireframe energy body of a brain. And as consciousness hits that brain, the brain has a perfect structure and geometry, whereby when consciousness hits it, it just lights it up and whoosh, goes straight through. And it has a perfect passage, no resistance, and it all goes equally. And it lights up and it passes through, and from that consciousness can arrive the will of unconditional love. And because the brain is structured perfectly in its original form, and it is not misshapen, and the geometry is as it should be, the consciousness meets it as the source of mind, comes through the brain in a perfect, equal, symmetrical flow, and then is expressed through the actions of the human being that the brain belongs to. And this was part of the vision, this perfectly structured, original brain. Consciousness hits it, whoosh, and the hands act upon the will of unconditional love. The will of destiny, shall we call it. The will of source. The present moment consciousness. The Eden consciousness. It hits the brain lights up evenly, symmetrically, and then that at the other end results in the vitality of the human being having full presence here and now to do the actions of that consciousness striking the brain and moving through the hands and feet of the brain's keeper, the body it belongs to. Now if you imagine that brain and you place inside the middle of this brain a small character, and that character is the essence of clinging. That character is the part of us that clings to the memories that we create as our human body going through the passage of day and night and season, and the memories that we take and we grab onto is the essence of clinging, the character of clinging. And it's not that you can't form habits and memories, because you need them, they're beautiful. And some habits are very wonderful, they keep you still. You can have a habit of meditation, a habit of yoga, a habit of exercise, a habit of just being present with your family. And these are very healthy habits to have inside that perfect structure of the brain. But when you grab hold of those habits and you pull on it and say, this is what I am and who I am, and you try to control, ultimately, the experience of the flow of life, the participant in the epic dance of life that you are. Not the entity that's separate and observing, but the participant in that dance. Just as the clouds are participating in their way, you too are participating in no different a way. Equal, together, unified, participating in that dance. The same vitality of life, the same force of life, the same beautiful, love-filled electric current of life that makes the stars twinkle, the forest grow, the river flow, the clouds move, your heart beat. This is the same force that's meeting the brain within you, and it wishes to express through you a certain dance in the same way it expresses the dance of the river flowing. But that element of clinging is taking that which is supposed to pass by, the cloud, the dance that you are dancing, that is supposed to pass by so you can make way for the next dance. It's grabbing that moment and clinging to it and saying, I am now this. And in doing that, it separates from the participation in the dance that's ongoing by pulling on clinging to a mental image. And as that happens, this little character in the middle of that wire frame grabs hold of the wire frame and pulls it inward. And it creates within the brain a trough, a valley, a rut. And that's one. nationality. Pull in that valley from that framework, that wireframe of the brain, and in it comes. Academic achievement. However, formation the clinging is going to take. The profession, another valley. That person hurt me, and so I must now be cautious with all other human beings. Pull in, another valley created in the brain. Before you know it, that perfect vessel of consciousness is now distorted and misshapen with all of these valleys that the little character in the middle of the wire frame and its need to cling has created. And consciousness, like water, will meet that brain, and it will flow into those valleys, and whatever is at the bottom of that valley, it will amplify it and express it further. And it will give the clinger, it will give the user of the mind that experience even more so. However harmful the experience might be to self or other, the nature of free will is that once you pull that valley in through the framework of your brain, that consciousness is not going to judge. It's going to come through and allow that to express. And the longer that goes on and consciousness is falling into these valleys and ruts, the perfect stable brain that allows for the presence of the human to have that light in their eyes and that vitality to experience life becomes diminished and dull. Because instead of the energy of consciousness and the will of unconditional love coming through into the actions of the hand, instead it must go into the valleys and ruts and play out those games and identities and even anxieties and pains and sorrows. Because with every valley and rut you take yourself further away from the vitality on the other side of that flow of consciousness coming through the brain, and that vitality equates to being present with God in as much capacity as possible. And so we will always create valleys and ruts, but the important aspect is that at some point we fade these valleys and ruts that make up the dream self into a mist. And as they fade to a mist, our grip in the center lets go and they ping back out, and the brain's valleys come back and the brain takes its structure yet again. And in that perfect geometrical structure, unburdened by the mind, unburdened by the clinging, then the will of unconditional love can meet that brain, flow through that brain evenly and beautifully, in the same way that it flows through the night sky and makes the stars twinkle and the day sky and makes the clouds move. It can flow through there, and that original seed of a fruit of destiny that is inside that human being has an opportunity to be expressed in the world. But right now we have commodified our attention inside society as acceptable, and so that consciousness meets a brain which is so misshapen by all of these various elements, not only of self-character, but of societal drags and drains on there, that there's so much work to do, so many valleys to navigate before that consciousness can reach the vitality of the person at the other end. And so the vitality is often not found. And so God is often not found, because we separate from that present moment, because of the little character inside pulling on the wireframe of our brain and making these valleys and ruts inside us. And when you let go, when you wake up from the dream, ding, 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 all those valleys, and the brain takes its structure, and the brain is now free from mind. And when consciousness and the will of unconditional love hits that brain, it can flow with close to zero resistance through that brain into the actions of the human, and compassionate right action will come through that human being. And the more original the structure of the brain, the less valleys and ruts we have, the closer we are to being Christ in this world, the closer we are to having that capacity. Because the consciousness will come, and it will meet the source of the brain, and it will wash straight through, and inside that consciousness is the will of unconditional love. And a Christ is but a human who, unpolluted by mind and self, and anticipation and desire, can be used by the will of unconditional love, here now, to do that service. Don't take my word for it. Examine that. Look at your brain. Look at how it feels when you stay here, sitting without expectation, not waiting for something, not seeking something, not getting over something, just sitting without expectation. The longer you sit there, the little character will start to let go of those valleys that it's pulled within. And even if it's for the briefest of moments, your brain will take its original structure and it will light up, and you will see the vitality of life and the glory of the mystery of it. And when you get there and you feel the presence of God, if only for a moment, you'll crave to be back there again and again and again, until nothing else will do, until nothing else but the presence and the Eden consciousness will do. The secret love. The secret love is waiting to come through you, but it needs a body and a brain, unburdened by clinging, unburdened by distrust, to light up and do its thing. God bless, guys.